Well, hi, welcome back to my channel. And I want to just say thanks for tuning in again. And if this is your first exposure to my journey, I'll just give you a kind of a quick snapshot of what I talked about on my first video, which was just that I was recently diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is a very rare brain cancer. It's also the most aggressive brain cancer that there is. And so my prognosis and survival and the amount of time I have left in life is very limited from a medical standpoint. So what I've done in creating this channel is really about just sharing my journey, the experiences that I've had, and then also I will continue to have as I seek treatment and healing. So that's kind of it, in a quick nutshell of like, here's what to expect. And ultimately, what I wanted to do in this episode is kind of talk about how all this came upon me. So, in kind of the second week of December in 2024, I'd been working a lot. I always worked a lot. I've been in management for years, and managers work a lot, so it was nothing new for me. I'm used to working anywhere from 12 to 14-hour days. But this particular second week of December was extremely challenging. I was working probably no less than 14 hours a day, and I was just plugging through those shifts. It was nothing for me, like I said, because I'd done it before. But I found that as I was heading into that second week of the month, that I was just feeling a little bit more fatigued than normal. I kind of started to develop a headache that just wasn't going away very easily, regardless of what I took to help. And and then on December 14th, I woke up and I could tell that my blood pressure was high, which is a little bit odd. We're waking up first thing in the morning from a relaxed, restful state to have your blood pressure be high. I'd noticed over the years that I was very sensitive to like spikes in my blood pressure. I could just feel the blood pressure getting moving into like stages of hypertension that were not safe. And so my first step for the day on the 14th was to check my blood pressure, see where I was at, and see what I might need to do to help kind of just relax and bring my blood pressure down. When I checked it first thing in the morning, I was 180 over right around 100, which, if you're not familiar with blood pressure ratings, 180 over 100 would be extremely high, and not safe. So I immediately just tried to rest, relax some more, and just drink lots of water. Can be a big thing, especially coming off of being dehydrated overnight. So anyways, I did all those steps that I would normally take, and when my wife got home later on that morning, I asked her to check my blood pressure again. Wanted to make sure I got a good reading, that the cuff was on right, and she did, and it was 200 over 110. So it had actually gone up. Nothing I was doing was helping. So I immediately just told her, like, you need to take me to the emergency room before I have a stroke. And that's not unreasonable. With my blood pressure where it was, there were really going to be two outcomes for me. I was either going to have a heart attack or I was going to have a stroke. And so she immediately took me to the emergency room. And while there, they asked, what some of my symptoms had been and how I'd been feeling for the week. And that's when I mentioned to them that I had had a kind of a chronic headache for the last several days. So they ordered a CT scan just to see what was going on in my brain, and that's when they discovered it. There was a large mass with some inflammation around it on my brain, and they said, "You have a tumor, and we need to transfer you to a hospital that will basically specialize and have the surgeons necessary to address this tumor on your brain." So they did that. Um, so I said it was on December 14th, happened to be a Saturday. So they moved me to another hospital, and once I got there, they immediately did an MRI and wanted to see what was the CT scan wouldn't show them. And through that MRI, they discovered that there were actually three tumors, and one much larger than the rest. But ultimately, these tumors were pushing my brain up against my skull, and because they were of all the swelling, and so it's where the headaches were coming from. It was I oddly enough, I had felt up until this morning, Saturday morning, I'd felt a little tired, but other than the chronic headache, I was still functioning. I'd been going to work every day. I was, pretty active. So the diagnosis and what they were sharing with me just seemed so unreal. Like it was almost like I had intruded into somebody else's life and I was listening to their story. And anyways, at the end of the day, the surgeon came in and said that they wanted to schedule me for surgery the following morning. It was the first chance they would have to be able to get in there and try to remove these tumors. My wife was a little alarmed because she likes to research, she likes to understand, and she's like, well, "Can we take some time to think about this? And are there any other options?" And at that point, I'll be honest with you, I was really kind of out of it, and I don't know if they were giving me stuff. I didn't feel like I was in any pain when I went in there. So when I think about were they giving me pain medications, they might have just started me on something out of fear that I would experience pain. Um, Although I don't remember having any pain prior to going into the hospital or even while I was in there in the beginning. But but ultimately, I just felt out of it. So there's some foggy spots after this that I just don't really remember that clearly. My family had come. My wife and my three children were all there, and I have vague memories, and some of that could be uh, because of the swelling on the brain, could be because of medications they were giving me. So some of my details there are a little foggy, but ultimately the doctor said, not that I remember this, but this is what I was told, was that if I hadn't come into the hospital that day, I probably would not have survived more than a day, and after that, and so he was expressing to my wife that there was no time to delay removing these tumors. Um, it was a life threatening situation at this point that they needed to address now, and he would have done it that evening if they could. And I don't know what prevented them from doing it that night. Maybe it was just purely amassing his staff and making sure that he had everybody he needed to do it. But so that next morning, I went in for emergency surgery, and they removed two of the tumors because they were more on the surface and in an area of the brain that they were able to, you know, to get to without damaging important centers of the brain. Then there was a third tumor that ultimately was deep within the brain that they couldn't get to at all. If they had tried, it would have obviously uh, made it very difficult for me to continue to function, probably to think and process, communicate, do physical activities, and so it just wasn't an option. Um, Lobotomizing me at that point was not going to be a better solution than the cancer. So they took what they could, and um, and had to leave some of the rest. And so I woke up on the 15th, probably the afternoon of the 15th, um, and started to learn some of these things just about how desperate my situation was. And again, being a little bit out of it and having all that swelling and on the brain, I think just made for a very surreal experience. And but I spent about another week in the hospital recovering, getting to a point where they felt comfortable releasing me, and that's a whole story. Boy, I could share with you some stuff about being in the hospital for a week, recovering from brain cancer, and a lot of it is just about if you've ever been in the hospital, you understand what it's like to try to sleep and to deal with uh, the interruptions from other patients and things like that. But I guess at this point, one thing I would say is that this was my first serious issue that I've ever had in my life. I've never broken a bone, never had a serious surgery on anything else. I've had some minor health issues that doctors have looked at, but nothing life threatening or something that would require uh, surgery. So to have lived my whole life, I'm 57 years old, and never had any big issues. And the first big issue is brain cancer. Again, a little shocking, and and just so the recovery and being in the hospital when I'd never been in the hospital before, at least for myself. I've been in the hospital for other family members to support them, but never been the one in the bed, never the one getting poked and prodded all the time. It was very much a surreal experience. So at the end of that week, then, so surgery was on Sunday, the 15th. Uh, by Friday, they wanted to release me because I was doing pretty well and they felt like I could function at home just fine. Um, and so Friday night, late in the evening, they sent me home. And I've been at home ever since, continuing to recover from the surgery and uh, and exploring this new reality for myself. What is glioblastoma? What are people doing to treat it? What clinical trials exist out there? What things can I do to take my possible, low prognosis of only a few months, maybe as many as 10 months left to live, and how can I extend that? And so that's what I've been up to since getting out of the hospital there at the latter part of December. In addition to just spending more time with my family, one thing you just realize is that when you're faced with these kinds of experiences and standing at the the precipice of death, you realize that wow, I've spent so much time trying to go through the mundane things of life because that's what you have to do to put food on the table and to keep a roof over your head, that ultimately um, all that's changed and now I have a much different outlook and perspective and focus because I'm not worried about whether I'll be here in 10 years and what I'll do for retirement and things of that nature. I'm just wanting to spend time with the people that mean the most to me and have those memories, not just for myself, but for them as well. So, anyways, that was the diagnosis, the prognosis, the immediate surgery, and hopefully, in the following videos, I'll be able to share with you some of the things that I've learned about the treatments and also the progress towards those treatments. But again, I want to thank you for coming with me on this journey, and I hope that uh, you were encouraged by it, that you find a little bit of the miraculous in it, because I I should have been dead probably on the 14th or the 15th of December. In reality, I was so far gone that cancer had taken over so much, had caused wreaked so much havoc that the doctors were saying it was amazing that I hadn't already died, but if I'd been just maybe one day later, I wouldn't have been alive. So in and of itself is a miracle. It's the grace of God at work in my life, and I that's all I can see when I retell that story to people, and I've retold this story multiple times to various people. That ultimately, um, the fact that I'm still here is an act of God's grace in my life. It's miraculous, and I wouldn't want you to hear everything that I said and miss that point. So, do miracles still happen? Yeah, they do. And sometimes they're not in the way or in the form that we think of them or want them, right? Because we all have the things that we want out of miracles and things how we want things to go in our lives. May not always be exactly the way that we would plan, but this is miraculous nonetheless. So um, I just hope that you see that, and I look forward to sharing with you more in the next video.